We live in a society that has less and less connection among people as time goes by. So many people are struggling emotionally with all the weight of life and pressures. It's even worse when someone is injured and in pain, getting jerked around by the medical system and never feeling like they are heard or that the provider gives a damn about helping them. We often get stuck in the trap of feeling sorry for someone, better known as sympathy for them, instead of understanding what they are going through, which is empathy. In this episode, I dive into the importance of having less sympathy and more empathy for your clients and the transformational power it can have on your practice and outcomes. I hope you gain some new perspectives and learn something useful. Welcome back to the Soft Tissue Treatment Revolution podcast, where we teach overworked massage therapists a better treatment system that will allow you to cut your treatment times by at least 50% so you can stay healthy, avoid the dreaded burnout, and help a hell of a lot more people get out of pain. If you're new to the show and you don't know who I am, my name is Dr. Matt Maggio. I am a soft tissue injury treatment expert, specifically for neck, shoulder, elbow, and wrist pain. My focus is on finding and fixing scar tissue and then reducing inflammation from chronic injuries without the use of drugs, injections, or surgeries, which does lead to a significant increase in overall functioning and long-lasting pain relief. Thanks so much for stopping by and checking out the show. Less sympathy and more empathy for your clients. So a story that inspired me from this, I did a consultation it's been a few weeks now with an LMT or a massage therapist that's actually going through massage school right now. And they've actually kind of been jerked around by the medical system, multiple doctors, physical therapy, chiropractic, offering injections, pills, all sorts of shit. Never really getting any answers about what's going on. Really feeling like they're just a number when they go in, having to wait a long time, getting MRIs done, all sorts of things, and never really getting any answers. Really just kind of getting fucked over by the medical system, which is welcome to the current medical model, or the medical nightmare that I call it every single day. And I have this one question that I always ask, and I go through a very thorough and in-depth consultation before I even decide if I want to take on a client. A lot of you out there just take on anyone that calls in and say, "Yep, come on in and we'll figure it out." Nope, I'm real picky. I only want to work with people that I want to work with, that I want to help, that want to get helped, that have been fucked over by other people and want to commit to a process to getting better. And after we were done with the consultation over the phone, they said to me, for the first time ever talking to a provider, they felt listened to and they felt heard. And lastly, they felt like they weren't getting talked down to. This is how all interactions, especially the first time with a client, should go. But often we miss this crucial point to help connect with the client on an emotional level, especially people that have been fucked over, lied to, overpromised, underdelivered by the nightmare that is the current medical model. Here's the thing. People buy, and I say this all the time, people buy based off emotion, and we must connect with them on what they are feeling and experiencing so we can help them in the long run. There's two ways to really look at someone who's injured and in pain, two ways to really look at it. And I promise you, this isn't going to be some woo-woo, hippy-dippy shit and energy healing and all that bullshit. It's just going to be some real world tactics you can use to help more people who are in pain. They've been jerked around by that fucked up medical system. And most importantly, they're skeptical as hell that you can even help because they've been just lied to, overpromised, underdelivered by so many other providers. They don't think you're any different than anyone else, and they're going to be really skeptical. One side note, I talk about this all the time. I actually got a podcast coming out in a couple weeks about the best books that I recommend. I get a lot of questions of like, what books do you recommend for business and marketing and sales and all sorts of shit. But the best book I've ever read, hands down, about human nature, why people do the things they do, why we act the way we do, all sorts of stuff, is Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene. It's like 1,000 pages long, but it's the best book you'll ever read. I think I've read it like 15 times. Go check that out. It'll really help you understand and cultivate what's going on with the client so you can connect with them emotionally so they can make the right decision, buy your treatments, and get their problem fixed. So sympathy and empathy. So let's jump to sympathy first. I kind of pulled up the dictionary whatever, but the definition, it basically defines it as the feeling that you care about and are sorry about someone else's troubles, grief, misfortune, etc. There are many times when sympathy is an appropriate emotion for a difficult situation. However, sympathy separates you from the person struggling. Some have described sympathy as a way to stay out of touch with their own emotions and make our connections transactional. Sympathy puts the person struggling in a place of judgment more than understanding. A person seeks to make sense of a situation or look at it from their perspective. When a person is sympathetic, they may give helpful advice or look upon someone with pity. They often feel relieved that they're not the ones dealing with the same struggle, and they ignore triggers or difficult feelings that arise from that situation. The person struggling may not feel listened to or heard. Exactly what I talked about, what this massage therapist had in that encounter with the medical system. I don't even think they gave a fuck, but they might on the surface pretend like they care, but they didn't really care. But that's what you feel. You don't feel listened to and you don't feel heard. And then you, as a person giving out that sympathy, you just feel bad for that person. You're like, man, I'm glad I'm not the one dealing with this. And it really just kind of walls you off emotionally. Now, let's get into empathy. Empathy is defined as the feeling that you understand and share another person's experiences and emotions, or the ability to share someone else's feelings. It is looking at things from another person's perspectives and attempting to understand why they feel the way they do. Empathy is not easy. It requires a tremendous amount of vulnerability to listen without judgment. Let me say that again. To listen without judgment and see yourself in another person's struggle. Empathy can be uncomfortable, especially when you are supporting someone in a dark time. Empathy is not about how to fix another person, but about listening to another person's pain and sharing their difficult thoughts and feelings. People at risk for suicide often express loneliness and pain through their words and actions. They feel as if no one can understand their struggle. It's the same thing when people are in pain. They don't think anyone really understands what they're going through because it's so awful and they're living in it. And when you can express empathy to them, it lessens their feelings of being misunderstood and judged. Empathy is shown in how much compassion and understanding we can give to another. Sympathy is more of a feeling of pity for another. Empathy is our ability to understand how someone feels, while sympathy is our relief in not having the same problems. Big differences there. And it took me a long time to learn all this and really connect with people about what's going on. So how to avoid getting trapped into the sympathy portion or the sympathy trap that I talked about. Number one is don't fall into the victimhood shit that's going on with your clients, where they blame circumstances and they blame other people and they're just it's everyone else's fault or it's someone else's fault. Like they're fat because their mom was fat and fed them shitty food, or they can't come to their treatments because their kid is too busy. They don't have time for anything. All that shit. People blame all that stuff and they don't take responsibility. It's such a disease that is just plaguing modern society. Don't fall into that victimhood shit. Do not let your clients be victims, and sure as fuck don't be a victim yourself. So how to use empathy in your marketing. Yeah, in your marketing, because remember, at the end of the day, we need to find more people that know that we exist so we can help, because there's someone out there every goddamn night crying themselves to sleep because they don't have a solution to a problem that you can fix, but they don't have a fucking clue that you exist. So how to use empathy in your marketing to help you connect with people more. Number one is, I don't know about the rest of you, but a lot of you that I talk to, if you're like me, and a lot of you are that I talk to, you're pretty fucking banged up physically and busted in your bodies, and you have your own injuries. You know, a lot of us got into this because we were injured or we had a problem or something happened to us and we got help and we're like, fuck, I want to help more people like that. So use your own experiences to share the stories, to show others experiencing the same thing, that you know exactly what it's like to feel what they're feeling and what you did to fix it. It's really powerful, because remember when we said sometimes people think when they're struggling and in pain that no one understands what's going on, their pain is the worst and nothing else. And you're like, hey man, I get it. I've been fucked up. I've been where you are. And they're like, oh, okay, there's someone that understands me. We're building trust. We're building rapport. And a side note, and I say this all the time, and I've been the biggest fucking hypocrite of this in my entire life. And I have a whole podcast coming about this. I think I'm going to do it next week. But if you're still fucking busted up as your own body, You don't take care of your body. You look like shit. You're sloppy. You're gross. You don't exercise. You eat like crap. Trust me, I'm not trying to be offensive to you. I've been there. I've been a fat fuck. I've been at that level where I was 100 pounds heavier than where I was. I was miserable. I was depressed. I was suicidal. All that shit. If you're in that position where you're busted up, you can barely move, your body isn't healthy, you can't eat right, you can't move right, you can't do anything, you don't get any treatment, you have to start making this your number one priority, because you know what you become, and I was one for years, is you're a giant fucking hypocrite that doesn't practice what they preach. So how to dial into empathy, I'd say during the initial client interaction. And I do this and I teach this. I went back and looked at all my podcast downloads, besides the ones where I'm like talking shit about like why chiropractic doesn't work and why you should tell your clients not to go to chiropractic or physical therapy. Those are the most common, not common, most popular ones out there. But the one it was really surprising. I went back and looked, and it was the most important question you should ask your client every single time before ever performing treatment. And this goes into my history taking and my taking a consultation. You know, a lot of you reach out and you're like, oh, I want to learn your system. And I'm like, yeah, it starts with taking a thorough history and using your brain and thinking and figuring out exactly what the fuck's going on. They're like, oh, I don't want to do that. I just want to jump into treatment. Well, that's why you ain't getting any results. That's why you fucking suck. Hey, truth hurts. But it's the last question I ask in my series of questions. I have 12 that I ask. And the last question goes kind of something like this. You know, I listen, I ask a bunch of questions about what's going on. And my last question, I always say, all right, I have one last question for you. And it is my most important question. Is it okay if I ask? You know, I always ask permission before I ask questions. You know, people want to feel like you're asking permission. I say, how is this problem affecting your quality of life? And then here's the key. The key component is I shut the fuck up and I just listen. I let them get it all out. Sometimes it might take a minute. Sometimes it might take 5 minutes, but I let them get it all out, especially the ones that have been fucking lied to, abused, just manipulated by the medical system. And I'm never in a rush to interject. I just listen. It's so fucking hard when we listen. We suck at listening because in our minds, we're just waiting and waiting. When can we say what we need to say? And we're not paying attention. I listen, I look them in the eyes, and I let them know that I understand what's going on. Then, after taking that thorough history, if you're confident you can help, you know, don't take on everybody. You know, some of us take on cases we should not take on, and we all know that. But if you're confident that you can at least help, I say something like this. I say, you know what? I'm so sorry that you've been dealing with this problem for so long, and you've been put through the ringer that is the current medical model. One thing I can assure you, though, is that you are definitely in the right place to get this figured out. I've helped a lot of people out of some bad situations, just like yours, all because I took the time to properly assess them and apply the correct treatment. So you know what? I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you found us so we can get this moving in the right direction instead of the wrong direction like it's been going. One last reminder. I say this all the time, especially for you technique and certification junkies that take every fucking class out there and go to these weekend seminars, and you're never really good at anything. You're just kind of surface level. Nobody cares what you do to fix their problem. They just care that you can fix their problem. And it starts with connecting with them on empathy. That's all I got for you guys. Appreciate you guys listening to the show. If you haven't yet, go download our free training modules to get you on the path of being a full problem solver, which also comes with listening and educating the client properly so they can have the best possible outcomes, and you can get that reputation as the best of the best in your area that fixes injuries that nobody else comes close to. And in closing, say it every week, but just need to repeat it. Go out there and be great this week. The world needs access to your treatments and solutions so people can stay the fuck away from pain pills, injections, and surgeries, which only make things worse. Appreciate you guys listening, and I will see you on the next one. Bye. Thanks so much for listening. If you want help on the path to being able to double your income, all while working 50% less and being taken seriously as a healthcare provider, I have some great resources for you. Number one, get access to our free training modules and introduction to my system, the Peak Method. Number two, subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Soft Tissue Revolution. Links to all of this can be found in the show notes. Lastly, if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star review and share it with others that you know it could help.